Hey guys, this video we're going to be looking at one of our algebra topics, and this one we've all seen before. This is order of operations. Now, most of us learn this as PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And this just tells us if we have multiple operations, in what order we should do them. So the first one is P, which stands for parentheses. And it's really not just limited to parentheses, it's any type of grouping symbols. You can have parentheses, you can have brackets, you can have curly braces, you can have absolute value symbols. All of those are grouping symbols. Also in a fraction where you have a numerator and a denominator, there are understood parentheses around the numerator and denominator, even though they are normally not written. So we want to look inside of those and see if there are any operations that we can work. Now if we look down at number 1 really quick, this first parenthesis just has a single number in it. So that's not a grouping symbol, it's actually a multiplication symbol. There's nothing inside there to do. So when we're talking about operations within parentheses, we're talking about something like this, where we would go ahead and figure out what 1 minus 5 is. Now once we've done all of our grouping symbols, we move on to exponents. That's our E. And then the third step, this is a little bit of a problem that some people have. They think because multiplication is listed for before division that you should always do multiplication first. And that's actually not true. Multiplication and division are both in the third step. You go from left to right. So it doesn't matter whether you hit multiplication or division first, you just work from left to right. Then same thing with addition and subtraction. That's one step. We're going to work left to right. All right, if we have multiple grouping symbols, we will go from the inside out. All right, so if we look at our first example, I'm looking for grouping symbols. So notice that I've got grouping symbols right here. So this is what I'm going to do first. I'm going to recopy everything else that's in here. I'm not changing anything. All I'm going to do is do the 1 minus 5, and that's going to be negative 4. All right, so this was our first step. Now our grouping symbols contain only single numbers, so we're done with those. We can move on to exponents. So on here, the minus is not being squared. The minus is going to come down. So 6 squared is 6 times 6, so 36. And we're going to recopy everything else. All right, so we've done parentheses and exponents. Now we want to go left to right, doing multiplication and division. So you may notice right here, we hit a division before we hit this multiplication. A lot of people will miss this problem right here. I need to do the 36 divided by 2, which is 18. And then I'll bring down that negative 3 and that minus a negative 4. So I did do division first. Now I'm still on multiplication and division, so now I'm going to do my multiplication. So 18 times negative 3 is negative 54. So I get 7 minus negative 54 minus a negative 4. All right, now I'm down to addition and subtraction. So remember, anytime you see a minus and negative, that's going to become a plus. So this becomes 7 plus 54 plus 4. All right, so if I go left or right doing my addition and subtraction, I get 61 plus 4, which gives me 65. Okay, so that one was a fairly complicated one. I wanted to start with one that had all the steps. If we look at number 2, I don't see any parentheses, I don't see any exponents. So I'm going to start by going left to right, doing any multiplication and division. So here's a division, I will do that first. So that'll be 4 minus 5 minus 7. Now I'm just going to go left to right doing addition and subtraction. So I start with 4 minus 5. So 4 minus 5 will be negative 1. Then negative 1 minus 7, the signs are the same. So we add those and keep the sign, we get negative 8. All right, number 3 is very similar to number 2. I have no parentheses or exponents. I do have a multiplication right here. So that will be 3 minus 20 plus 9. Then I go left to right doing all my addition and subtraction. So 3 minus 20 will be negative 17 plus 9. Remember, when the signs are different, we subtract. That would give us an 8. 17 is bigger than 9, so we keep the sign on the 17. All right, moving down to number 4. This one is a lot like number 3. I'm going to do my multiplication first. I don't have any grouping symbols or exponents. So that will be 14 minus 21 plus 8. So moving left to right, 14 minus 21, that's going to give me negative 7. Negative 7 plus 8, signs are different. I subtract, and I keep the sign of the bigger number. That's going to be a positive 1. All right, so for number 5, this is the one where I see a lot of mistakes on. So I want to mention a couple of things. Most common mistake I see is people will go ahead and say, okay, 6 minus 2 gives me 4. So we need to be really careful with that. That's a subtraction, which remember is at the very bottom of the list. So I want to save that. So just go back to your list and say, okay, do I have anything within parentheses? And I need to do that first. So first thing I need to do is 4 minus 9. That's going to be negative 5. I'm only going to do that step. I'm going to bring everything else down and try not to get in too much of a hurry. All right, so my grouping symbols are done. I move on to exponents. So this is going to be negative 5 squared. So negative 5 times negative 5. So what's in parentheses becomes positive from multiplying the negative to the negative. Then I'm going to bring everything else down. All right, I've done grouping symbols and exponents. Now I go left to right doing any multiplication and division. So there's a multiplication. So 6 minus 50 plus 1. Then I go left to right. So 6 minus 50, I'm going to subtract those, keep the sign of the larger number. I get negative 44 plus 1. Again, I subtract, keep the sign of the larger number. And I get negative 43. All right, number 6, let's look for grouping symbols first. So inside my parentheses, I am seeing 1 minus 5. So that's the only thing I want to do with my first step. I'm going to bring everything else down. All right, next is exponents. So I can go ahead and square the 2. Now notice the difference between this one and the one up above it. Up here, my negative 5 was in parentheses, so the negative squared. Here, that negative is not in parentheses, so the only thing that squares is the 2. And then that negative is going to come down. Okay, so that'll be minus 4 minus 8. So don't get in a hurry on order of operations questions. Just do one step at a time. All right, I've got grouping symbols. I've got exponents. I want to go left or right doing multiplication and division. The common mistake is to want to go ahead and multiply these together. But notice the division does come first. So I need to do 72 divided by 3. And that comes out to be 24 times negative 4 minus 4 minus 8. Now I do my multiplication. 24 times negative 4 comes out to be negative 96 minus 4 minus 8. Okay, if I go left to right doing addition and subtraction, notice those are both negative, so I add them and keep the sign. And I get negative 100 minus 8. Again, the signs are the same, so I add and I keep the sign. All right, so our last one in this video is number 7. Notice this one has multiple grouping symbols. So I've got these brackets, but then I've also got these parentheses. So we always want to start with the innermost. So I'm going to start here with the 1 minus 4. So everything else is going to come down. I want to keep those outside grouping symbols. So 1 minus 4 is -3. That's still in parentheses because I haven't squared it yet. Bring everything else down. So now I want to stay inside these symbols. I want to get this completely simplified before I do anything else. So I'm still in that parentheses step. So I'm going to recopy this stuff up here at the front. -3 is in parentheses, so -3 times -3 is +9. And then finally I get 9 plus 3, which is going to give me 12. Now at this point it's up to you if you keep those grouping symbols. Since there's a plus there, it's not indicating multiplication, it's just addition. So if you want to not write the brackets, you can go ahead and drop them at this point. All right, so going left to right, doing multiplication and division, we get 18 divided by 2 is 9. So I get 9 plus 7 plus 12. This is nice because they're all positive. I get 16 plus 12. So my final simplified answer is 28.